Hi, everyone. I'm Terry.
And I'm Ella.
Welcome to the Chasing Red Flags podcast, Let's Get Real.
Here, no topic is off limits.
And real beats perfect every time.
Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome to where you belong.
You're part of the family now, so let's get real together.
Hi, baby.
Hi, Mama. How you doing?
We're back on the couch.
Back on the couch.
It's a big day and a big episode.
It's going to be an emotional one, but I'm ready.
Good.
Before we begin, we just want to say thank you so much for being here. It means the world to us. Please subscribe to the Chasing Red Flags podcast, Let's Get Real, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can watch all of the episodes. Happy 1 year breakup anniversary to me.
Happy breakup anniversary.
Crazy.
It's been a year.
It's been a year.
I know it's been a long year, but on a serious note, today is a really big milestone for you.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell everyone why?
Because every single moment and every single memory for the past year has been mine and mine alone.
I know during the past year, you've had a lot of therapy and you've done a lot of healing and you've talked a lot about self-reflection. I'm incredibly proud of you.
Thank you. And it's been a long year, but I have learned so much about myself and I've learned to put my worth back in my own hands. And I think that that's the most important thing. I've absorbed a lot of my feelings and I've stayed silent in talking about what I've been through, and I was ashamed and I felt like I would be looked at as the scorned ex-girlfriend because there's a lot of shaming that happens when people can't understand what you're going through. And that truly affected my mental health in a lot of ways, and I'm ready to just share my story a little bit.
We love therapy in this house.
We do love therapy, and you guys have taught me to be kind and empathetic and forgiving, and therapy taught me that I can be every single one of those things and still have boundaries and my own voice.
We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Like beyond proud of you, Ella.
Thank you.
This is going to be an emotional episode for all of us. So we appreciate all of your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening or watching. We felt it was important to bring on our first guest, an expert in relational trauma that could help explain some things to some of our viewers.
Very excited. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about my most recent relationship and what I have learned from it. And I know that it's not just me who's experienced unhealthy relationships and some heartbreak. And I know you have, Mom.
I have.
So I am just hoping that by sharing my story, I can show people that despite heartbreak and a million mistakes on my part and putting people before myself, that you're going to be okay and that you're going to get through it.
You're going to get through it. Everyone's going to be okay.
Everyone's
you're okay.
going to be fine.
So,
and I'm good.
I'm very proud of you for being vulnerable and open. We're all very proud of you, Ella.
Thank you.
I'm just going to let this be yours and let this be your moment and give you the mic.
Thank you. So my therapist gave me a timeline assignment, and this has obviously helped me heal a lot, and I'm hoping that maybe after sharing this with you, it will help some of you heal too. Obviously, after 5 years, there is so much more to this timeline, but I didn't want to share personal aspects of his life that weren't my place to tell, even though they did affect me. So here goes. So far, my life has unfolded in 4 quarters. The first 2 were when I was just a baby and then a little kid. The third quarter, from ages 10 to 15, was rough with girl drama and lots of middle school challenges. The fourth quarter is where I've learned the most so far. This next part of my life marks me taking ownership of my own story. At 14 and a half, I met a boy. He was rumored to be the bad boy, but I saw a vulnerable side of him that nobody else saw. We talked every night for hours, told each other all of our secrets, and immediately became best friends. At 14 and a half, he was my first real kiss. At 15, we officially started dating. At 15 and a half, we said we loved each other. We were bonded both mentally and physically. At 15 and a half, I had a friendship breakup that destroyed me and left me feeling very alone. He became more than just my boyfriend and my best friend. He became my escape from the pain of the friendship breakup that was ruining high school for me. At 16, we talked every day. We saw each other whenever we could, and we were deeply, madly in love. At 16 and a half, he went away for the summer. A few weeks after he left, I got the "Hey girl" text from another girl telling me he had cheated on me. When I confronted him, he lied over and over, telling me he didn't do it, that he loved me, and that I was his person. 24 hours later, he admitted it, and I was heartbroken. We broke up. It completely changed me and how I viewed myself, but at the time, I didn't realize how much. He was with another girl 5 days later. During the 5 weeks we were apart, he would type to me on Snapchat several times a week and delete it so that I would see his name pop up on my phone, but there would be no message. It kept me hanging on. I started to crave those moments, but it destroyed me inside and kept me from moving on. I had faith one day that he would say something. 5.5 weeks after we broke up, he finally did. He told me he was miserable, he made the biggest mistake of his life, and that he never wanted to be with anybody else again. His exact words were, "I wouldn't be doing this to you if I didn't know that I was marrying you." I was still madly in love with him, and I believed him. At 16 and a half, I visited him to reconnect and spent time with his family in the place that he cheated on me. It haunted me, and although I was so happy to be back in his arms, I was still in a lot of pain. I became anxious and insecure, and I couldn't get the image of him with somebody else out of my head. I started binge eating and throwing up, and I didn't tell anyone, including him. I became a version of myself that I didn't recognize. I suffered in silence with a smile on my face. At 16 and a half, he started liking bikini pics of other girls on social media and was lying about the little things. I cried myself to sleep at night alone, wondering why I still wasn't enough. At 17, his brother started dating my ex-best friend. The safe space that I felt at his house for the last 2.5 years disappeared. No one cared or validated how hard that was for me, including him. I suffered in silence at family dinners with a smile. At 17, 9 months after begging for me back, he blindsided me and broke up with me again. He was with other girls less than a week later, and several girls over the next 5 months. That never stopped him from typing on Snapchat for the first time or texting me over and over, but the pattern repeated itself again and again, and it caused me excruciating physical pain. I couldn't sleep. I had headaches. My stomach was always in knots, and I couldn't stop replaying all of our good memories over in my head, wondering why I wasn't enough. At 17 and a half, I was caught throwing up by my parents and got treatment for my eating disorder, but I didn't tell anyone. 5 months after we broke up, he texted me, telling me he had a hole in his heart and that he missed me. We reconnected and talked every single day, and he came on very strong, and once again, I believed his words. It had been 5 months, and my heart still didn't know how to stop loving him. I craved the good times, and talking to him provided relief from my pain. A week later, he changed his mind, and he told me he needed to listen to his head and not his heart, but that I should keep faith that we would always end up together. I was in physical pain and broken all over again. I said goodbye, and we stopped talking. He continued to be with other girls. At 17 and a half, a girl he was hitting on told me he called me crazy. I swore to myself that I was done. I was in a state of grief, and I had very little self-worth or self-respect. I started putting myself out there for the first time, but I was going through the motions of what I thought I was supposed to do to heal. But in time, I started to smile again. On my 18th birthday, he texted me to say happy birthday. A week later, after hearing from his brother that I was moving on, he reached out again and told me that he couldn't live without me and that we belonged together. He told me being with other girls showed him that he never fell out of love with me, and he called me his wife. At the same time, even though he had been with countless people, he made me feel guilty and ashamed for trying to move on. I ignored everyone and didn't listen to my gut, and we got back together and started over. He told me he was a different person and that he would never hurt me again, and he said we were endgame. It had been 6 months, and I believed that we were still in love. At 18 and a half, 5 months after being back together, and 6 days before his senior prom, he went away for the weekend, and he cheated on me again. They had been snapping secretly prior to the weekend. He lied to me about their communication and his entire night away. He did not tell me he cheated. I caught him, like the first time. He denied it, and then he admitted it once I showed him proof. He was a mess, and he cried, and he manipulated, and he love-bombed me over and over, and somehow he made me feel like I needed to take care of him when I was the one in pain. I went completely numb. I disassociated, and I didn't tell anyone. Publicly, I kept my smile. He was the one hurting me, but nobody else knew because he was the only one that could heal me at the same time. 6 days later, we went to his senior prom, and 3 weeks after that, we went to my senior prom. At 18 and a half, I again wondered why every night I wasn't enough. I was broken inside and hid it from everyone, and when I look at the prom pictures, now all I see is pain behind my eyes, but everybody thought we were perfect. We graduated high school. We celebrated by going on a pre-planned vacation with my family out of the country, and it felt like a honeymoon. He told me he couldn't wait to marry me one day and that he never wanted to be with anyone else again. And once again, I believed he meant his words. 1 month later, and 3 days before leaving for college, he told me he wanted to have an open relationship where we could be with other people physically, but not emotionally. He wanted our relationship to stay the same, but to have the option to be physical with other girls late at night if he was drunk. I was confused, I was sick to my stomach, and I was stressed about leaving for college, and I wasn't ready to lose him. So I agreed, even though it's not what I wanted. At 18 and a half, we both moved to different states for college. I had my first panic attack in econ class. I agreed to go on medicine for my anxiety, and I didn't tell anyone. I was setting my alarm before I had classes to wake him up for his classes so that he wouldn't sleep through them. I was leaving parties to talk when he was available. I wasn't sleeping because I was wondering who he was going home with at the end of the night, and again, I started catching him in lies. At 18 and a half, I was unhappy at college and hiding it from everyone. I started therapy at school. With the help of therapy, I found my voice, and I told him that an open relationship was not what I wanted. I was unable to be in love with him and physically be with somebody else. But he knew that when he suggested it. I went to visit him. He looked me in the eyes. He promised he hadn't been with anyone else since he got to school, and he told me he was madly in love with me. We went back to being in a fully committed relationship, long distance. When I was 19, I caught him snapping other girls and asking another girl for plans and several lies regarding his contact with other girls at college. His Snap Best Friends list was all girls, and somehow his I'm sorries and I love yous manipulated me into staying. I started CBT therapy to address my anxiety and trauma. I went to visit him twice at school, and he came once to mine. Each time, we felt so connected in person. When I was 19, I moved away from my family, and I got a job to be with him for the summer because I was scared that if I wasn't with him, he would cheat again. Because of the therapy, I started to maintain some boundaries and use my voice. At the end of the summer, he took me on a romantic date and told me he couldn't wait to marry me after college and talked about all the places that we would travel on our honeymoon. He told me leaving for college for our second year would be easy because we were in such a good place. 3 days later, he blindsided me and he broke up with me for the third time. This time, I told him not to contact me again, and he left for college. 4 weeks later, and the few weeks following that, he would snap text and not send the message so I would see his name pop up like all the times before. It was his pattern of manipulation, but I never responded. On what would have been our 5-year anniversary, he blocked me on Snapchat, and the irony made me laugh. In December, exactly 4 months after the breakup, he texted me to ask if I wanted to get coffee over the holiday break. My muscle memory responded and said, sure, sounds good. And I never heard from him again. He just wanted to continue the manipulation cycle of seeing if I was still there. I finally saw him for exactly who he was and who he had always been. Today, exactly 1 year after the final breakup, I smile every day and the tears come, but they come less and less. I have an incredible support system, and I have realized that I am enough, and I was always enough. And I have learned that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance. I have learned what a trauma bond is. I am happy, and I am healthy, and I started chasing red flags to give back to others who have faked a smile with all different aspects of their life, even though they are suffering inside, just like me. I have also discovered the red flags within myself, and I am a work in progress like we all are.
You okay, baby? I'm obviously a little emotional, but I'm so proud of you. I know how hard that was, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm good. I think it's just, I'm still working on not disassociating from my feelings, but I think it's just weird to hear everything all together in a row
Out loud.
out loud. Because yes, I wrote this myself, and yes, I've talked about it in therapy, but reading it for all 5 years of my life, what I went through each year is a lot to hear.
Yeah. And this is only the second time I've heard it, and the
Yeah.
first time you couldn't get through it because you were crying so hard.
Yeah.
So I know you're keeping it together. You don't need to be. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I think you're incredible. How does it feel that it's out there and off your chest?
Feels really good. I think it's really nice to be able to open up and finally share my story and what I went through, because I was so scared to. But nobody can tell me how to feel, because this is what I went through and my process of how I'm handling it.
So it's been 1 year.
1 year.
How are you doing today?
Doing great. Healing is not linear, and that is my therapist's favorite line. And obviously I have my moments, but it's a zigzag of ups and downs, and it takes as long as it takes, and I'm doing really good.
I know sharing your story is going to help so many people who are struggling, but I think we both felt it was also important to have an expert to come on the podcast to talk about relational trauma, and we have that today, and we're really excited about it. So
Can't wait.
Today's guest has made it her life's mission to help women that are struggling with toxic and unhealthy relationships. You might recognize her story because she is the ex-wife of Jordan Belfort, who is known as the Wolf of Wall Street. Dr. Nadine Macaluso brings a unique perspective on unhealthy relationships, why people stay in them, and how friends and family can offer support. She has a master's degree and a doctorate. She is a therapist, and she is the author of the incredible book, Run Like Hell, that Ella and I read together and are obsessed with. We believe every woman should read this book, and as you listen to this episode, we hope you feel less alone and know that you deserve healthy love. This is one of those episodes where we feel if we can even reach one person that needs to hear it, it can be life-changing.
So excited. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go to our convo with Dr. Nay. Well, we're so excited you're here. This is truly a pinch me moment. So please, everyone, welcome Dr. Nadine Macaluso to the Chasing Red Flags podcast. Let's get real. We're so excited you're here.
We're so excited you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Let's do this thing.
All right, let's get into it. You were married to Jordan Belfort, who was played by Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, and Margot Robbie was played by you. Was it your heartbreaking and devastating experience that led you to become a therapist?
Yeah, what had happened is when I first met my ex-husband, Jordan Belfort, the AKA Wolf of Wall Street, my life was so crazy because everything with him was so intense and dramatic and erratic. And I realized, I better get my butt into therapy because there's no way I can handle this guy. And so I did. And so then what happened is as I got older and I was thinking about a second career, I thought to myself, you know what? Therapy helped me so much that I want to go do it. And that's how it happened. Yeah.
So I have to ask this because I know our listeners will be wondering, but how accurate is the movie to your life experience?
I hate to say it, but I would say it's very, very accurate. Yeah. He was a wild person. Yep. It's very accurate.
I know I used to watch The Wolf of Wall Street with my ex, like pretty often. And my mom and I recently rewatched it after reading your book and listening to some podcasts. And it was so hard to watch it thinking of it from your perspective. And I don't think that most people do that at all. And I think here at Chasing Red Flags, we talk a lot about red flags. And I know we had heard you mention saying that like it might be a red flag if your brother or boyfriend or son is obsessed with this movie. Is there any chance you could kind of just explain that a little further?
Well, yeah, because if you think about the way Jordan is portraying himself, right? He portrays himself as, I mean, he wrote the book, so it's his narrative of himself as a
Yeah.
misogynistic, drug taking, abusive individual. So, I get nervous that if somebody really resonates with that, what's happening inside of them?
Inside them.
That
Exactly.
so that's why I say that. I mean, listen, of course, there's some people that like it, that it doesn't apply to everybody, but the
Yes.
character is very, very extreme and very, what's the word, pathological in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Extremely.
So in your book, you concentrate a lot on trauma bonds and how a trauma bond initially feels exciting and passionate and then changes over time. So can you talk about how a trauma bond relationship differs from a healthy relationship?
Yeah, I love this question. I'll give you a fun example about my daughter, who's a therapist, who's 30.
Incredible.
When she was dating her current husband, she said to me, "Mom, I feel like something's wrong. It's not like this crazy, intense, passionate, over the top, obsessive
Yep.
relationship." And I said, "You know what? Nothing's wrong. It's just going at its own pace. It's actually following a path of love and connection deepening, not pretending to be madly in love after 2 weeks."
Yeah.
Right?
I think, yes. I think a lot of the younger generation looks for that crazy passion. They think that's what it is in the beginning and that's what they get attached to.
Right. And listen, when you're young, you got your hormones doing that for you anyway. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're running the show more than, at my age. But yeah, I think it is fun to be infatuated with someone, but we can't let feelings of infatuation make us overlook red flags.
Right. Exactly. And you talk about self-betrayal a little bit.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit what that means?
Yeah, sure. I can give an example. When I first met my ex, the Wolf of Wall Street, I was 22, I think about to be 23, and my parents had divorced. So I didn't want to get married till I was 30. Whatever. I had that weird number in my head. And he was like, "No, if you don't marry me, I'm not going to date you." And I gave into that to stay attached to him. And that was me betraying myself, because that's a very big decision when to get married.
Right. So any decision when someone is betraying themselves to please someone else is what the self-betrayal is.
Actually, it's not about like, do you want chicken or salmon, right?
Of course.
Or about, when to get married and when to have kids, which are very big personal decisions that I didn't have a right to in that relationship.
Of course.
I think in society these days, we're obsessed with like the love and the feeling wanted and somebody like saying all of these, making excuses for certain behaviors because we kind of like the jealousy because it shows that they care. But I did this all the time in my relationship, and I like made excuses for him because he was so jealous and I liked it and it showed he wanted me still. And like you talk about extreme jealousy and how that's kind of a red flag in your pathological lover checklist. And I do recognize a lot of those behaviors on that list, and I do wish I had it a lot earlier. But is there any chance you can explain some of the qualities that are on that list?
Yeah. The jealousy and possessiveness is really a red flag, because my belief is that if someone is very jealous, they're projecting the fact that they're a cheater onto you.
Yeah.
Right? And
They turn it back around.
exactly. And so, especially for me, I was like, I'm really in love with you. I don't want to cheat on you. Why are you projecting this onto me? Right? And possessiveness is, in love, you should have the space to be your own person.
Yeah.
And in trauma bond, you don't have that. Another one is words not matching actions, which is huge, right? Saying
Very big.
one thing, but not doing it. Not allowing you to have boundaries, because boundaries are healthy, right? It's where you begin and I end. And any severe substance abuse, that's a big one, right? Um, yeah, I can't think of. I mean, I think there's like 20. I don't even know.
No, there's a million, but
The
those
list is
The
incredible.
list is incredible. That's something that I look at these days a lot.
Yeah, the list is great. Pathological lover checklist, and yeah, there's a bunch on there, but they're all based on experiences that I've taken from all my patients.
Yeah.
Right.
Just my
I think
experiences.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the qualities actually is that their words don't match their actions, and that's what you said. But I think when you are so madly in love with someone, like which is what I was, and they're telling you over and over again that they love you and they want you and they need you and that you're going to marry them and like you're their wife, like you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So for somebody that's feeling that, what are you supposed to do?
Well, here's the thing. I would say we can't just always follow our feelings. I think if our gut is telling us, wait, he's saying he loves me so much, but then he's being jealous and controlling and abusive. Which one is it? If you're seeing that words not matching actions, go back to facts. If words aren't matching action, you have a problem.
Go back to facts. That's great.
That's
Right?
good.
Go back to facts. Sometimes,
Go back
Yeah.
to facts.
especially when you're young, again, as we mentioned with the hormones, you can't just follow your feelings.
Yeah.
You can't follow the dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
In a young girl's mind, in anyone's mind, to be honest, we make excuses, right? We say, he loves me so much. We justify their actions. I think you call it toxic loyalty.
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing with Jordan? And did you feel like you ignored your gut? Can you explain what toxic loyalty is?
Oh my God. Yeah. One of my largest TikTok videos is when we got engaged in front of Rolling Roaster. And he gives me this 5 carat beautiful ring. And I say yes, but inside I say, uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's like,
You knew.
Get down, gut instinct. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew.
I knew part of me, but I didn't want to know.
Well, of course. I think you always are justifying their actions and trying to talk yourself out of it. And I think that's what definitely a lot of the younger generation does. I do that sometimes. You also, in your book, talk about the real you disappearing and someone's sense of self being erased. How do you define a trauma bond when so many people think the word abuse is just physical?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that the trauma bonds, one of the pieces of it is intermittent abuse or intermittent reinforcement. And it's really a fancy psychological word for, someone being extraordinarily caring and generous and helpful, and then someone being cool and controlling and antagonistic, right? And so it's those confusing behaviors time and time again, which actually don't happen in a cycle, just can come out of nowhere, right? So you anticipate them that actually bind you to the person. And a lot of times, this person at the bottom of a trauma bond is the person wants power and control over you. So that's why in the abusive behaviors, they don't have to hit you. They're dominating, they're threatening, they're insulting, they're degrading, right? And so slowly you start to lose your self esteem and you become much easier to control.
Right, right. And you get emotionally attached too.
Yeah, and it actually creates a deep emotional attachment. And I talk about that statistic in my book, that 230, when they researched animal trainers and animals, they discovered that the animals that had intermittent abuse bonded to that trainer 230% more than
Even more.
straight kindness. And when I read that research,
That's crazy.
I wanted to jump through the roof because I was like, okay, here it is.
Right.
It is stop blaming the victim.
Yeah.
I think for me, just going back a little, there were like such high highs and then such low lows with him. And I had such internal conflict between the inconsistency because in my mind, I was only focused on the good things. And then when he went away for the weekend or I wasn't with him for a weekend, I was just thinking about like all of the bad parts of it. And I think I wanted to trust him. But again, his behavior between the inconsistency was just so hard. So like, I know it's kind of a broad question, but like, what are your thoughts on that? How do people handle that?
Well, that's a very important point. So what you're describing right there is cognitive dissonance. And so what I write about in the book is that cognitive dissonance, that confusion of trying to hold the two masks of that he's showing you, creates so much confusion inside of us. And so you're always like, wait, is he good? Is he bad? Am I crazy or is he crazy? Is the relationship good or bad? And so what I say to the people, and this is a very hard thing to say, to manage the cognitive dissonance, if there's so much disparity between these two different masks that they show you, you have to realize the good is just as manipulative and controlling.
Yeah, I wish I had seen that a lot earlier.
I think that's definitely a hard
It's
thing for them to hear.
Yeah.
Before I say that to my patients, I always say to them, I'm going to tell you something really hard. So take a deep breath. And they'll push,
But I need to hear it.
yeah, they'll push back at me. And I'm like, listen, I know it's hard to hear, but it's really the truth.
Yeah. I think when I was in my relationship, I was very ashamed to tell my friends that he had cheated on me again. So he kind of became the only person that could comfort me. So can you explain to our listeners a little bit how we can be hurt by somebody but also like soothed by them at the same time?
Yes, yeah, that's another big part of the bond is that, the victim feels so much shame. The shame should really be on the abuser and the cheater and the betrayer. But like you said, we feel so much shame. So then, and plus they want to isolate you from your friends, right? So then you don't share it with people. And so then, since you're so connected to them and bonded to them, when you're not like 100% perfect with them, you feel like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't be right. And then once they reach out, you feel relief.
Mm-hmm.
Torture
Yeah.
becomes your soother.
That's it. Well, I look at you, a lot of high functioning, smart, kind, beautiful women like you end up in these relationships.
Yes.
Are there certain personality traits that, that people should look out for that, attract these kind of relationships in these men?
And that's, I read a book in 2019 by Sandra L. Brown called Women Who Love Psychopaths. And it's a great book. And it's where I've learned a lot.
I think we're going to buy that.
Yeah, where I got a lot of my research from. And she did research on high functioning women who were in domestic violence situations. And she discovered, and I have the assessment on my website, so anybody can take it if they want to know their personality traits.
That's great.
Yeah, there's 5 of them. There's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And she discovered that women that are very agreeable, meaning they're tolerant and loyal and kind, and women who are also very conscientious, meaning they're very driven and directed, and they're like, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to see this through, are really perfect prey for these men. Because if somebody comes to therapy with those traits, I'm not going to be like, get rid of them. But
right.
Trauma bond, they get weaponized.
Right. Because those are a lot of qualities that Ella has and that a lot of women have.
Listen, I wouldn't have my Ph.D. if I wasn't conscientious.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I was like so driven to keep my relationship, and that was madness.
That was me. I wanted to fix it and do anything I could to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So I recognize a lot of those. I think also we're all human, and there's such a stigma about like being in an unhealthy relationship and like why people decide to stay. Yeah. And I've gotten the question over 1,000 times, why didn't you leave? And I know you feel very strongly about this, but why do you think there is such a stigma around that?
Because I think unless people understand the deep psychological processes of relationships and attachment and connection, to them it seems so obvious. Right? And so they're just like, oh my God, like, what's wrong with you? How could you not leave? And it really, again, this is one of the reasons why I wrote my book, because it puts the shame and the issue on the victim. But how about asking, why does he do it?
Right. Why'd you cheat instead of why'd you stay?
Right. It's like you're loyal, you're kind, you're trying to make your relationship work. You believe in relationships. Clearly you have a beautiful relationship with your mom, right? So it's like, why can't this work? But no, let's ask why you do that, which is another great book by Lindsay Bancroft.
Okay. We're going to write all these down.
I like that.
It's great.
And there are all references too in the back of my book.
Okay.
Yes, you have
the resources are amazing.
The resources are incredible.
Yes.
As you know, parenting is hard.
Oh, yeah.
You have kids, parenting is hard. There are so many parents that just want to tell their daughters, leave. He's not allowed in the house again. He can't come back here. And then there's parents like me, if I'm honest. I treated him like a son. I treat everyone that comes into my house like a part of this family. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
I didn't want to alienate my daughter. Right. So if someone listening has a daughter or a friend or someone in these unhealthy relationships, What would you advise them to do?
I know that's so hard. And, I have to tell you, Terry,
That's the struggle.
I get so many even direct messages on Instagram from mothers. But I would
Right.
just say it's better, especially if you're dealing with a young girl such as your daughter, keep the lines of communication open. Don't judge. Just keep educating them so that when they wake up, because we do wake up,
It takes time.
it takes
They have to figure it out on their own.
then you're there. And it is part of their journey, unless, of course, they're in extreme physical danger. Safety trumps everything. But just to keep getting educated, educate them, and just keep the lines of communication open because you want to be there for them when they come back.
Right. Right. Exactly.
See,
I didn't want to alienate
it
her.
worked. Your
Yes,
Exactly.
method
it did.
works. There you go.
What is toxic positivity? Can you kind of explain that to the listeners a little bit?
Yeah, toxic positivity is when, listen, these relationships are extraordinarily painful and devastating.
Yes.
And yes, we can say that we can make meaning out of our suffering and we can all learn from it, but we can't discount the horrible pain that we all have endured while being in it. And so, it's like if somebody says, well, that happened for a reason, then, but it's like, that it's just dismissing the victim's pain.
Right.
I just don't like it. And I'm a positive person.
Yeah, no, we are too. Listen,
100%.
we're very positive in this house and inviting and welcoming and, definitely felt a little bit like an enabler at times, but
Yeah,
that's just part of the process.
it is part of the process. And, in this instance, you're not enabling. You're really just loving.
Right.
And I think, you want to.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I hate that word. And it just tricks me.
I do too. I hear it often though.
It's like, oh, you're enabling. And there's a lot of great research on this too. And I can't think of the researcher right now. It's not coming to my 56-year-old brain, but he talks about that. And we're trying to change that narrative.
Right.
It's like, no, we just love people.
We just love people. Yeah. And I'm accepting and loving and caring for anyone that my children care about that I love as well.
Right. And you want to give, we do want to give people the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah.
Because it is
of course
when, they're around your most precious daughter. So I just hate that word.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, everybody said that to me about Jordan. And I was like, first of all, you think I'm going to control that guy or his drug addiction?
Right. No, certainly not.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah. I have had a lot of therapy recently. I used to not be in therapy and it's the best thing I've ever done and I'm going to keep having a lot more. And I have learned so much about myself and I feel like that's just been the best thing in the world for me in this past year. And you focus a lot about self-reflection and turning the mirror back on yourself, which is super important in chasing red flags in the business we've started.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that is so important?
Yeah, because when you're in this trauma bond, we become so obsessed with our partner. What are they doing? Where are they? What are they thinking? Do they need this? Right. And so that's part of losing ourselves. And so, we need to turn the mirror back on ourselves and be like, who are we? What do we need? What are our attachment patterns? What are our personality traits? Because the only person we can control in life is ourselves. And, it's a beautiful thing to take time to get to know yourself. Like it's the most important project you'll ever work on.
Exactly.
It is. Yep.
I have learned so much about myself over this past year from just reflecting. And I do think it is one of the best things you can do for yourself. So,
and it's a luxury, right? To be able to do that.
It is. It is. And we're all learning that we all have flaws and we all have reasons we stay and reasons we do things. And I think that's important is not just to place blame, but also to look at ourselves. Why do we stay? And why do we not speak up? And why don't we do certain things that we need to do for ourselves?
Right. And especially, if you have an agreeable personality, right?
Yeah.
That you do have to go against your own nature a little bit to set boundaries and say no. And trust me when I tell you, I could not do that as a young girl. And let me tell you now, I'm like, nope, 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 nope. And it's something that also is a part of personal development in life in general.
Right. Yep. So if someone is listening right now and thinking to themselves, "Ooh, this sounds a little bit like they're talking about me,"
Yeah.
what do they need to know?
So, what they need to know is that they're not alone and that it's okay, even if it feels scary, you know, they will get through it, but to get very, very educated. That is why I wrote my book, because I believe that education leads to empowerment. Find a therapist, find a group online, direct message me or you guys, right?
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and don't isolate. So reach out for connection, get educated, and don't tell them you're doing this.
Right.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
that is very, I agree.
Yes.
I think nobody is perfect here and we all have flaws, obviously. But what are like very specific qualities that we should be looking for in a healthy relationship?
Yeah, so I talk about this a lot, and I talk about, the quality of connection, right? Does your partner respect you? Can you trust them? Do their words match their actions? And do they give you the space to be who you are? Right? Do they say, "Yeah, go out with your friends. Go do that girl weekend.
Wear what you want.
Yeah, go get that job." Right? And they're also very curious about you. Pathological people are not very curious about us. Right? I could be talking to my ex-husband and he'd be like looking out the window. Right? Like you want somebody that's curious and invested in your growth.
Yes, I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you found some of these qualities. You've been through hell and back, but you've come out the other side. And it's important for our listeners to hear that there is life after trauma and heartbreak. So before you go, can you tell us a little bit about you've been married 24 years, you have beautiful children, and you are very happy and healthy. And
Yes.
could you tell us a little bit about your life?
Yeah. So, I met my current husband. I think we were actually tomorrow, 25 years ago, we went on a blind date. And
Oh,
yeah, and I had done a lot of work after my relationship. And we met and we fell in love. And he had 3 kids and I had 2. And we blended families like the Brady Bunch. It doesn't mean that this relationship has been perfect. Please, like, no way.
no relationships.
No, no relationship is perfect. But the difference has been is that I've changed, he had changed, and we can hear each other and grow
Right.
together. Yeah, no, it's actually a lot of fun now.
I love it, but it's so good to see that after all of this, you are thriving and you're teaching other people. And we just fell in love with your book. I think it's so important for girls in my generation to be reading it. I really do. I think that's one of the most important things, and we're going to keep promoting it because
So
I'm going to reread it probably 4 more times because it helps me tell myself what I need to hear.
that's right.
And I just think sometimes you need to hear it multiple times for you to actually follow through with some of the things you're saying you want to do.
Yeah, and it's a great mother-daughter thing, to be honest. We read it at first together. We highlighted things, and then we would have conversations about it, which is super helpful.
You guys are so cute. Yeah, I love
Thank you.
there are a lot of like heavy things in there. And when you read it the first time, you get some, but then the more you learn the language, you'll be shocked, right? As you're saying,
Yeah,
like you get more and more, you soak it more and more in. But I do
yeah.
agree that it is so important for young women.
Yeah, and I think that for us, when we were going over it, obviously a lot of it was not relatable to Ella and where she is, but the pieces that were, the pathological lover checklist and those type of things, and even one of the stories in there, all of a sudden she was like, "Oh, there's pieces of that I can relate to." It's just also educating yourself and learning about dating and marriage and
What you want.
relationships and what you want, and it's just incredible. We think everyone should read it. So we appreciate you and appreciate you being here.
Oh, sweet. Well, I appreciate you guys. And you know what? This is a very, very important conversation because young girls need to protect themselves. They just do.
Yeah.
They don't need to go through 30 years of a marriage, right? And then be like,
Right.
what happened with my life? If we can educate people when they're younger, and that doesn't mean people don't heal even after being in a marriage that long, but why not get educated and get empowered?
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. And anyone can do that by reading your book. So,
Absolutely.
and all of your resources that you provide.
I
So
was going to
thank you.
say that's the best part. There are so many resources, and I think everyone should be using them.
Aw, thank you, Ella. You're so sweet.
Of course.
Thank you for
I
being
mean, we
here.
could ask a million more questions, so we appreciate you being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. This is why I do what I do. Writing that book was the hardest thing I've ever done.
I can imagine.
But this is why I do it, because I just want to help people not be home.
Thank you.
Love.
Thank you.
Like you think like, oh, I'm falling in love and I'm going to be safe and I can trust this person. And when the total opposite thing happens, it's really, really hard. So thank you.
It's, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. If you want to learn more from Dr. Nay, please check out her book, Run Like Hell, or go to her website, drnae.com. It's drnae.com for checklists and resources and literally everything you need to know. We have several of these books, but she gave us this book and it's a signed copy. She has book signings all the time and all of her information is unbelievable.
And some of it's in the back of the book, so check that out too.
She was amazing.
I can't believe that just happened.
That was incredible.
I would say, just from overall this conversation, my biggest piece of advice, our biggest piece of advice, is to not be so hard on yourself at all, because you're going to have triggers and memories and these feelings, and it's going to pop up, and it's normal. So allow yourself to feel them, because if you hold them in, you're not going to ever be able to accept them.
And I think you should just listen to Dr. Nay. She was positive and kind and warm and, told you not to blame yourself. And I just loved everything about that interview.
Yes, and just overall, don't keep what you're going through inside. Don't fake a smile. Go to somebody. Open up to somebody. Even if it's me, DM me, email us, talk to somebody at all, just so you can open up and be honest.
This conversation has felt like a long time coming.
It has been a very long time coming. And if we're being real, I'm going to say that it's probably not the last time we're going to be talking about it.
It's probably not. But for now, that's all the mental and emotional capacity that we have.
We would absolutely love to hear from you, what resonated with you. If you connect with anything, just reach out to us, and we'll see you guys soon. In the meantime, keep being real, keep being you,
and know that we've got your back.
If you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to say hi, we would love to hear from you. Your support means everything to us. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Chasing Red Flags Official, and on Facebook and YouTube at Chasing Red Flags. And if you want to share your story, ask a question, or pick up some Chasing Red Flags merch, go to chasingredflags.com. The Chasing Red Flags podcast is produced by Jay Del Turco. We are new in this space, so if you enjoyed what you're hearing, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or add a comment and like on our YouTube channel.